Welcome to The Brain Dump, where we study the psychology of success. Join us as we probe the habits, rituals, and routines of top-performing artists, entrepreneurs, authors, athletes, and more to uncover the timeless principles we can all use to take our lives to the next level. Are you ready to plunge the grunge that's been gunking up your mind's eye? Great, then let's get to it.
Hello, hola, bonjour. Welcome to The Brain Dump. This is the podcast where we study the psychology of success, and also where I am working on my multilingual ness. It's not coming along great, but I am your host, Anthony Vicino, joined by my friend, my good friend, Austin Linney. How you doing, Austin?
Doing all right. So we're fighting over topics, guys, but I'm going to let Anthony
we're having
go
a fight.
after.
We're having a topic fight.
What's the topic today, brother?
Well, actually, no. Let's throw out both topics because I don't know what yours is. You don't know what mine is. Let's throw them out there and then see which one sparks our soul with joy.
I think that we need to talk about the secret weapon in everything that we do: social media, investing, business, personality, everything.
We're going to tell them our secret weapon.
That secret weapon is consistency.
Oh shit.
Yeah, you didn't expect that coming.
Wow, I did, because I mean, I know you. I know me. I love consistency. So that's your topic, consistency?
Yeah, what is yours?
Hey, I think we can kind of tie these together. I think we can mesh them and make a little Franken baby out of them. So mine is, so I keep coming back to this one post that I made last week because a lot of people came out of the woodworks and said a lot of things that just like they're like nails scratching down a chalkboard.
I had a great night just reading through the comments. It was really
fantastic.
Awesome.
It's fantastic. I was like, this is the best post ever because it was so divisive. You either had people who were like, yes, I love you, Anthony, you're the best. Or you had people that were like, and I'm like, that's good. That's a good thing. But one of the things somebody said that really stuck out to me, and I'm like, man, this is the mindset. This is a loser's mindset. I'm not saying he's a loser. I'm not saying that at all. Mm-hmm. I'm saying this is a losing mindset.
Yeah.
He said something, because this post in particular was about how to get rich, but specifically how you can't get rich investing in index funds. This guy said, yeah, well, I don't have time to be a professional day trader. So I like to just set it and forget it and be able to come back once a year and look at my portfolio, take stock, and then just move on. And I was like, set it and forget it is the most losing mindset you could possibly have about anything, not just about finances, but about anything, about your self-growth, your relationships. There is nothing in this life that you can just set and forget and trust that it will continue growing and improving. And that's what I wanted to talk about. But I think we can tie this in.
Somehow we got on two separate topics, but in my opinion,
they're kind of the same. They're kind of the same.
Yeah. No, I could. You know what's interesting? Released 280 episodes, give or take, between two podcasts in about a year and a month or two. And people like them, people don't like. It doesn't matter. But that's not the comment I get the most. There's only one comment I get the most. Man, you're super consistent with your posting. Mm-hmm. You're super consistent with showing up every morning and working out. You're super consistent with your personality. These are the aspects that people should tie themselves to that will truly create the compound effect. But to your point, on the back of what you said, is setting it and forgetting it is such a fixed mindset that it literally blows me away, because the actual mindset, the actual key to life is growth mindset on the back of consistency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And because you have to show up every single day. You guys know that that's like my number one rule of life is 80% of success is just showing up. And then the other 20% is just doing what you say. And in that, you could just dilute that down to the single word of consistency. Be consistent, be reliable, show up and do what you say you're going to do. Like, it's simple, but it's not easy. but anybody could do it. Anybody could do it. If you're listening to this right now and you're like, well, I can't do what Anthony and Austin do because Anthony is too smart and Austin's too good looking. Like, I don't have those traits. Like, no, like those aren't the traits to, first of all, neither are true. Second, well, Austin is pretty good looking. He's got a good looking beard there. But the thing is, like, consistency is something that we can all aspire to. And I say that coming from a place where if you were to rewind 15 years ago, you would look at me and be like, that dude is unreliable. That dude isn't consistent. I struggled with this from like, not just like in the way that we all struggle with it, but also like neurochemically. I have ADHD and really struggle to be consistent, like, and to show up every day. But if I can do it, if others like me can do it, then so can you. You can create the structure and the habits and the routines around your life that allow you to do it. But at the end of the day, you can't just create the system and then put yourself inside that system like you're some kind of, I don't know, input, like variable, and then trust that it's always going to put out the same thing. You can't set it and forget it. You have to consistently reevaluate what you're doing and why you're doing it, and if it's leading you towards your desired objective. And it's only in that like constant state of self-reflection that you can grow.
So if 2.5 years ago, if you looked up the word inconsistent in the dictionary, it would just have my picture right next to it. So I really don't want to hear that you can't do it, but I'll tell you something very interesting. I haven't shared this with anybody. And it's this, if I said this out in public, people would be like, that guy's just bragging, right? So I try to keep that to myself. But when I did 75 hard the first time and I went 150 days in a row, in the day like 80 to like 100, because this sounds really weird, but when you set a new standard and you just set it and forget it, you almost create this new level that you have to live up to, that if you don't continue to grow, as hard as you do it, it's ultimately not going to make you a better person. It's with change. It's with new information. It's with switching things up that you actually create the mechanism for more growth. And that's what people don't understand. You can't just set it and forget it.
And this is where consistency is interesting, because if you're not careful with consistency, then it just becomes rote routine and you're just doing the same thing. And there are plenty of people out there who are not successful, who are just doing what they've always done. And they're being consistent and they're going to work every day at 8 a.m. and they wear the same tie. They're like a walking Dilbert comic strip. And that's top of mind because you just read Scott Adams' book, How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big. And it's like the hedonic treadmill. Right? We become so adapted to the good and the bad in our life, and then that just becomes the new baseline. And that's not what we're talking about when we're talking about being consistent, because that's going to hit a plateau, and then you're going to stop growing. And so what has to happen is you have to hit that next level and then reevaluate. Okay, how do I keep growing now? One of the things that I would tell people when I was rock climbing full time, because people would come up and be like, man, you're so good. You're so good. You're so great. And all this stuff, because I was a pretty good rock climber. But the thing was, I was always like, you know what? It doesn't matter how good you are at the end of the day, because rock climbing is always hard, regardless of how hard you climb. I might be able to climb on smaller holds than you that are further apart. But for you, where you're at, the climbing is just as difficult. And so at the end of the day, climbing hard is always hard, regardless of how good you are. And that's the thing, is if you want to improve, you have to accept that challenge. And if you just say, you know what, I don't want to climb hard anymore, I just want to be comfortable with where I'm at and just set it and forget it, you can do that. But that's exactly where growth stops then.
I always relate this back to me. I was riding in the car with some friends, and I got a phone call about an Airbnb client, and it was like $1.5 million property on a lake in Colorado. And I was like, yeah, we're going to do this. And I got off the phone, and my friend's wife looks at me and she goes, well, that was about the most nonchalant conversation I've ever heard in my entire life about running a $1.5 million mansion, and you're 3 states away and you don't have a cleaner and you don't have this. And she goes, how are you so free about that? And I go, because I've already done it. Like, we'll just do it. And in that moment, I realized that if you would have asked myself 3 years before I started Airbnb, if I would have ever done a house that was far away from me, I'd have told you you're crazy. But time in the saddle, pushing yourself, getting out of your comfort zone, doing things that that are farther along out of your comfort zone have created, like, perfect example, same scenario, on a conversation about a $180 million loan the other day. And I'm looking around at the call going, what am I doing here? What is going on? But then I realized I was the one leading the call. I was the one that put the room together. And so when you're in these conversations, when you're in these moments, as you continue to go down the road, you're more grateful to be in the experience, but always with your ears open. And you're consistent. I'm always consistent in who I am as a person, regardless of the situation. So I can be comfortable in that setting because I know who I am.
Mm-hmm. So I think for me, like the real big takeaway here of this episode today is both consistency is everything. If you want to be successful, you have to be consistent, but you also cannot let that consistency just become stagnation. And so you can't just set it and forget it and just keep showing up and like trusting. You have to keep reevaluating. And I think what really got under my skin so much when I read that comment in particular is I felt really bad for that person. This idea of setting it and forgetting it, because I think in my subconscious mind, I thought immediately of Aristotle's quote that the unexamined life is not worth living. And I thought about that for whatever reason, this idea of just setting and forgetting a thing in my life. And I thought, that doesn't sound like a life worth living to me. And I felt bad for the guy because he was arguing for that. He was arguing for the prison that he had built around himself, and couldn't even see that he was in a prison and that he had the key. He was the only one that could get him out of that prison. And I felt so bad and I was so frustrated because for whatever reason, I wasn't communicating well enough. I wasn't an effective enough communicator or persuasive enough to help him see that he was in that prison. And, that feels bad. And so if you're listening to this right now, hopefully we can be more effective for you is like, 1, consistency is everything. But 2, don't let that also then become the prison. Keep reevaluating, keep reflecting and saying, how can I improve? How can I do this better? Is this what I want to continue doing? Otherwise, you're just a slave to the routine.
Ed Milet did a speech at an event that all my mentors are in a mastermind called Go Abundance. And he said on stage, and in the first 5 minutes said this statement, and it's forever stuck with me. He said, I'm sitting in a room with 75 multimillionaires, and you're sitting around looking at each other, and you're saying, I'm successful. And he said, successful compared to who? He said, because it ain't successful compared to me. And when I stand around in my rooms and I'm around with billionaires or people that are more in love with their spouse or more in love with their kids or more present with their kids, you're not more successful than them. So if you're not stretching, if you're not being consistent in who you are and you're not showing up for yourself and you're not pushing yourself and creating new levels every time, then the myopic set it and forget it is going to rip your life apart. And you're going to wake up like I've spoken to 1,000,000 50-year-olds or 49-year-olds or 60-year-olds. And they're saying, where did the time go? Where did it go? And it breaks my soul in half to hear that from them. Well, I would really love to spend time with my kids, but I'm too busy working. Because you haven't done the steps necessary to ask more out of yourself and be more consistent with who you are and be more consistent with growth to create the gap between where you want to go and where you're going.
There's only 2 things you can do with your time. You can spend it or you can invest it. And for most people, when they're spending it's not right or wrong. There are all sorts of things that we need to spend our time on doing. It's what you're spending your time on. And recognizing, is that a waste of a time or is that a necessary expense? Like something that you have to pay for. You have to spend it anyway. And with the rest of your time, what are you doing to invest it? And for me, the homework I want to leave you guys with today is to really think about what Aristotle said, that the unexamined life is not worth living. And looking at your life, whether that's in your relationships or your business or your work or your passions, your hobbies, whatever it is, and saying like, what are you not examining right now? What are you intentionally not looking at? And we all know what those areas of our life are. Like if that's your finances, you're like, I haven't looked at my bank account statement in 2 months. Okay, that's not going to get you where you want to go. That's not going to solve the problem. Putting your head in the sand, setting it and forgetting it is not working. And so find that area that you're not examining and then put it under the microscope. Give it a long, hard look. And then don't just be overwhelmed by what you find there. Create a game plan for how you're going to show up consistently to improve it. And that's your homework.
I love it. Couldn't have said it better myself. Guys, thank you so much, guys. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us here at the Brain Dump. Now, before you go, it's important to solidify what you've learned here today by taking action. If all you do is listen, then you're only going to retain a small amount of the information you consumed here today. So take a quick moment to really lock in any key insights, tidbits, or pieces of wisdom that you want to carry with you into the future. You can do this by heading over to iTunes and leaving a review with your top 3 takeaways from this episode. If you've already left a review, first, thank you so much. Second, it's time to start a brain dump journal. It doesn't have to be fancy, just a slip of paper will do where you can record a couple quick thoughts from each episode. Science shows this is one of the best ways to ensure long-term retention of new information. And finally, if you've got a brother, a sister, a coworker, or a best friend that you think would benefit from this episode, do them and us a favor and share with them this episode. Your support, as always, means the world to us.